Hello and welcome to another edition of Sri's Sunday New York Times Read Along. Our guest this week is Greg Pliska, a freelance puzzle maker and composer. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. My name is Neil Parekh. I'm the executive producer and guest host of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Please let us know where you're joining us. Give a shout out to your friends, tag people, retweet, share, like, do all the things that you do. And in particular, I want to give a shout out to everyone watching the replay who are watching from the very beginning. We air the show every weekend at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, and often with a guest, usually with a guest, often with someone from the New York Times. And of course, this week, Greg is with us. Greg contributed to Puzzle Mania, which was in print just before the holidays on December 18th. He's going to take us through a little bit of the process behind putting that together and the mini puzzles that he contributed to the project. We'll also be looking at the 52 places to go. The New York Times travel special is back this year in full force. But before we go into any more detail, let's go ahead and show you the little promo video that we've put together. This week, our New York Times read-along guest is Greg Pliska, a freelance puzzle maker and composer. He contributed to Puzzle Mania, the New York Times' annual special section devoted to puzzles. Neil Parekh will be the guest host. This is the 7th year the Times has published Puzzle Mania. Joel Fagliano was the brains behind the Super Mega Crossword, which is larger than ever before. It has 782 clues. Greg, this week's guest, created 7 mini puzzles. Quoting Will Shortz, puzzle editor of the New York Times, "Together, the crossword and mini puzzles are like a treasure hunt or escape room in newspaper form. Solve everything, then follow the directions to get a meta answer." After we finish talking about puzzles, we will turn our attention to the New York Times' 52 places to go in 2023. We'll take a look at both the online and the print edition. From the opening essay, travel's rebound has revealed the depth of our drive to explore the world. Why do we travel? For food, culture, adventure, natural beauty? This year's list has all those elements and more. Sri Srinivasan is our host. I am the executive producer and occasional guest host, Neil Parekh. Paula Kiger helps produce the show, engaging with the audience on Facebook and LinkedIn. The show is produced by Digimentors. We produce high-quality virtual and hybrid events for organizations big and small around the world. We also do social and digital consulting, training, and workshops. Again, Greg Pliska is our guest, live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. That was our promo video for today. We have a lot of great content that we're going to be sharing, so I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We want to welcome some of the folks who are watching today. Jonathan is watching, offering greetings from the East Village. Thank you, Jonathan. Linda Lawrence is watching from Long Island. Thank you, Linda. And our friend Doug Levy is watching from the San Francisco area. We know that it has been a very wet several days, if not weeks out there. So we hope that you're doing well and staying safe. Diane Stefani is watching from Margate, New Jersey. Thank you, Diane. Always great to have you join us. And thank you for calling it. That's a great moniker, the Puzzles in Places edition. Wish I had thought about that myself. Uh, Ted Coltman is watching from Washington, D.C. Ted's watching on YouTube. Thank you, Ted. Always a pleasure to have you. And our friend Pradnya Haldapur. Pradnya, I wasn't sure if you'd be able to join us this week. I know you're traveling. She's in the UAE for the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Thank you, Pradnya, for tuning in. And I guess it's a little easier, a little later in the day for you than 8:30, the usual time. Patricia Freudenberg is watching. Thank you. Patricia's watching on LinkedIn. Remember, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. Um, we have our friend Stefan Kaplan saying good morning to the New York Times Read Along family. Hope everyone is well. No one should be puzzled as to why we are excited this morning. Absolutely, Stefan. And of course, I want to give a shout out to Paula Kiger. Paula Kiger is watching from Tallahassee, Florida, but more importantly, she is helping on Facebook and LinkedIn. She's part of the production team that makes this possible. Of course, Sri is our host. It's his show. I'm the guest host and executive producer. But Paula Kiger engages with the audience on Facebook and LinkedIn, sharing links to stories, links to our website, etc., and answering questions. So thank you, Paula. We also want to give a shout out to Muckrack. Muckrack has been a longtime sponsor of the New York Times Read Along, and we want to thank you for your support. We also want to make sure you know that this is a production of Digimentors, the consulting firm that Sri set up several years ago. If you're interested in having us work on a production for you, please drop us an email. You can reach us at sri@digimentors.group or neil@digimentors.group. And we would love to work with you. Before we jump in the show, I think a few other people have checked in. So I'll just say hi really quickly. Ken Fisher is joining us from Iowa. So lucky I found the New York Times Read Along. Thank you, Ken. We really appreciate you saying that. And help other people find the show. Please share, retweet, like, comment, tag your friends. It's always an interesting conversation. We always have a different focus. Today is puzzles and places, to take Diane's suggestion. But last week we focused on the year in review. Sorry, the pictures of 2022. So that was certainly a great show. Laura Silverman is watching from Philadelphia. Thank you, Laura. And before we go into the papers, I do want to take a moment. Some of you might have seen on social media, particularly if you're connected with Sri on social, but Sri's mother passed away last week, Lekha Srinivasan. I know how close the family was. We actually knew her as well. I grew up in New York, and I actually knew Sri's parents before I knew Sri. And I know my mom was, a big fan. Lekha was a great dancer, among other things. Did a lot of charity work as well. So our hearts and prayers go out to Sri and his family and his father, Ambassador Srinivasan. You might know Lekha. You might have seen her comment on the show from time to time. They would watch from India and say hi to their son. So Lekha, just what for Ambassador Srinivasan and everyone else, please accept our deepest condolences. And with that, with a bit of a heavy heart, we will move on. And Jonathan offering condolences as well as Naomi. And I'm sure others will as well. We will share those as we see them. Pradnya said she's going to miss her sweet comments on the show. Absolutely. Linda Lawrence and Laura Silverman offering their thoughts as well. With that, we will turn our attention to the paper, and I will turn over here. We're going to do our tour of the front page sections, and then we will bring on Greg to talk about Puzzle Mania. So this is the front page. We have Ecuador tried to curb drilling. The reverse happened. That's the display photo on the left-hand side, using oil to ease debt at rainforest's cost. The lead stories, there are two. Santos's deceits weren't a secret in GOP circles. This is about George Santos, the this is about George Santos, the representative that was elected recently. He ran twice. This was his second run, but he has a long history of lies and deception that is just came to light after his election. The media and the Democratic Party somehow missed it. The awfully, I believe, is a Biden inquiry puts spotlight on Winter 17, the frenetic last days of a vice presidency. These are about the documents that were found at Biden's office and residence after he left the White House. Sorry, after he left as vice president. Below the fold, you'll see a preview of 52 places to go in 2023. 4 pictures are right there. The return of travel has shown the depth of our drive to explore, with destinations like Arizona, Algeria, Scotland, Japan, India, and more. This year's list offers inspiration. Special section. This article, Plundering Art, Russia Assaults Soul of Ukraine. As historical dramas mushroom, so do complaints about their inaccuracies. Obviously, The Crown is the lead example there. So that's what we have for the front page. We'll set that aside. Of course, we have Puzzle Mania ready for when Greg joins us. Again, Puzzle Mania was in print December 18th. And if you saw that show with Megan DeTrolio, we did take a look at Puzzle Mania. And Greg joined the show. I tagged him in a tweet, and he logged on and offered some commentary at the end, which really added to the show. So, Greg, thank you again for doing that. And so glad that you were able to join us today to go over some of the details. 52 places to go is the other special section that we'll be focusing on. It's pretty heavy if you have the print edition. It's really great. But we will definitely look through. And Greg has done quite a bit of traveling himself, so he'll offer his own thoughts and perspectives on that section. The rest of the front page sections, Sunday Opinion, the GOP appears to be falling apart, but sometimes change is messy. What is a Republican to do? And that's my empty chair. Sorry about that. For some reason, my camera is toggling on and off. So I'm going to put that back on the screen for you, and we'll continue just like that. The Sunday Opinion, that's a little art form. I don't know what kind of elephant that's showing at the bottom. We'll see if we can put that under the camera for you. Some kind of artwork. And the Sunday Business, how much do you make? That's interesting. We asked nearly 400 people on the streets of New York to tell us how much they earn. Only a small fraction actually spoke to us. And it's interesting that, I guess that's the paycheck that they have, but interesting. That's a story worth taking a look at. Sunday Styles, one man, one day, no plastic. And the bottom, the substance is all around us, despite how much it hurts the planet. An experiment highlights the difficulty in avoiding it. And of course, last week's guest, Tanner Curtis, although he was detailed to work on the Year in Pictures, works on the Styles desk at the New York Times. Arts and Leisure, not sure what this is referring to. The Last of Us, adapting a dystopia. Makers of the new TV series are aware that shows based on hit video games often fail. They are determined to get this one right. Interesting. We will take a look. The book review, Domestic Terror. This novel, Brotherless Night, explores the moral nuances of violence. This is based story about Sri Lanka, and the author is a member of SAJA, the South Asian Journalists Association. Definitely want to take a look at that. And the magazine, Again, this is an interesting. If you notice the layout with the New York Times Magazine kind of around this dollar sign. After more than a year of soaring prices, the Fed may finally be winning the war on inflation. But as high interest rates take the air out of the economy, which Americans will be squeezed? Interesting. Very, very interesting. That is the paper, the tour of the paper. We'll put Puzzle Mania on top, and what we'll do is we'll take the paper and set it aside. And I'm going to put this over here because way to the left, because we'll need the full table for Puzzle Mania when we get there. But before we do that, again, I want to remind you that our guest is Greg Pliska. He is a freelance puzzle maker and composer, and he's contributed to Puzzle Mania, several of the mini puzzles, and he'll explain how they connected to the super mega crossword to form a meta puzzle. With that, we welcome Greg Pliska to the show. Greg?
Yeah, good morning, Neil, and good morning, everybody who's watching and listening. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And again, thank you so much for joining our show on the 18th when Puzzle Mania was in print and adding some of your perspectives and thoughts at the end of the show. That really was great.
Well, I was lucky to see your tweet. Thanks for tagging me on it. And of course, I was up on Sunday morning and had a great time listening and watching, not just to the puzzle segment, but to the whole show. So I'm glad to be a part of the family now.
Absolutely, thank you. So tell us a little bit before we show Puzzle Mania on the screen. Give us a little background in terms of your work. You don't work for the Times specifically. You're a freelance puzzle maker. Have you worked on other projects for the Times before this year?
I actually have not worked on anything else for the Times. This is my first chance to create some puzzles for the paper. I've known Will Shortz, the puzzle editor, longtime puzzle editor of the Times, for many years through the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament that he created and runs in Connecticut, which also happens to be where I met my wife, Jessica. The old saying, you do the thing you love, and eventually you love someone who also does that thing. And that definitely worked out for us. And Will and I have also together been part of the Mohunk Mountain House Wonderful World of Words weekend, which is up in New Paltz, New York. Will ran that for many years, brought me in to help make puzzles. In the last few years, he stepped down from running the event. Now I run it and someone else makes the puzzles for us. But we've had a long time connection, and this was finally the year I got to do something with him for the Times.
Well, you mentioned your wife, Jessica. Before we talk about Puzzle Mania, I wanted to make sure that we work in early in the show how you met her at a puzzle conference, and I want to skip right to the end because it's not the end.
No, it's the beginning.
The end of the beginning, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure.
Yes.
Your proposal.
Yes.
It was a crossword, and yes or no were both possible answers in the center diamond. Now, if folks are interested, you can find this crossword on our website to see what how Greg did this. But Greg, tell us a little bit about this. Explain how this came about.
Sure. Well, since we met at the crossword tournament, puzzles have always been a part of our lives, and we were living together in New York, and I set up a series of puzzles. Actually, Neil, this was the final of several puzzles that Jessica had to solve.
You really made her work for it.
I did. Well, she did say, I forget if she said this to me live or she reported what she was thinking afterwards, but she said, if this isn't a proposal, he's in big trouble. But she finally got to this crossword, and hidden in the grid, it says, "Will you marry me?" And then in the center is this additional little puzzle where you can put multiple letters in each of the squares. And there's sort of one option if you put yes in the center square, and one option if you put no in the center square. So she had the option right there to decide what the answer would be. And I think she turned to me and said, started to say yes. And I said, no, you have to put it in the crossword. You have to finish the puzzle first.
You actually made her do the puzzle, even though she was ready to say yes.
Yeah, to get through it was a key part of the process. That somewhere we have the copy of that documented that she did in fact say yes.
Is that as important as that license?
Yes, exactly. It's the effective crossword marriage license right there.
Absolutely. So now, explain a little bit how, because one thing I thought was really interesting is that there are only, 3 across in the middle of the diamond and 3 down in the middle, right?
Yes. So
How does no and yes fit in that space?
So the very center square, which I believe each square has a letter, is labeled with a letter instead of a number there. So it's A, then across the middle is B, C, and D, and the bottom is square E. And so there's a clue for the center square C that I believe says one answer or the other. And then squares I have a clue that says square A and square C together. And there's one clue. If you do one answer, the clue for that was Mets shortstop Jose, because we're both Mets fans, and that would have been Jose Reyes. So that would have been R-E in the A square and yes in the C square, spelling Reyes. Then the set of clues for the other answer was Nevada gambling town or something like that, and that would have been
Right?
Reno, with the R-E and the no. So I don't know what would have happened if she chose no. I'm not sure she would have bothered to finish the puzzle at that point. I'm not sure, but it worked out. So
That's great. We are thrilled again that it worked out, and that two puzzle makers found, or I don't know if she makes puzzles as well, but she loves puzzles, and you make puzzles for her every year on her
yes,
birthday and anniversary, right?
Our anniversary also happens to be her birthday. So I make her both a birthday present and an anniversary present, each of which is a crossword.
Wow.
Which is actually kind of terrific for both of us. It's something I love to do. It's something she loves to do. It kind of celebrates how we met, and is another fun way that puzzles are a part of our lives. Now we have 2 kids, both of whom are also getting into puzzles. So the puzzle genes are passed on.
And Laura says, "Wow, what a creative and romantic endeavor." And Patricia had said, I put it up earlier. Greetings, Greg. Kudos on your amazing creative puzzle work. So let's take a look at more of your creative puzzle work and walk us through Puzzle Mania and exactly what you did with that show as I come off the screen, and let you explain this to us.
Sure, of course. Puzzle Mania is one of the most anticipated issues of the Times every year, because it's this jumbo-sized section filled with all kinds of great puzzles. Will writes several puzzles. There's a bunch of freelance constructors who contribute. And so it's very exciting when Will suggested that I create some puzzles for it, and particularly create what we call a meta puzzle. Meta puzzle is where you have several puzzles, each of which solves to a single answer of some kind. And then when you combine all those answers together, you combine them in some kind of meta puzzle that unites all the answers from the subsidiary puzzles. So that alone is I don't want to say advanced puzzle concept, but it is not something you encounter every day in the Times or anywhere else. There are a few publications that do regular meta puzzles and some actually fun meta crosswords that are out there, but this is not your regular fare, certainly in the New York Times. So when you get started on this, there are 2 main components. There is the set of mini puzzles that I did, and there are 7 of those in the meta puzzle contest section.
That's what this section is right here.
Yeah.
So
And
let's go. Let's just walk through the.
sure,
There's castle tower,
castle tower.
bullseye,
Yep.
let x equals,
Let x equal question mark. Yep.
fruit squeeze,
Mm-hmm.
when in Emory, fill me in and then some in the bottom left, biographical information, and then the place for the final answers.
The final answer that incorporates all 7 of those puzzle answers, and then right behind what you're looking at is the regular Puzzle Mania feature that really, I think, anchors many people's holidays around the country.
Oh my God! Look at
It's
this.
the super mega crossword. Joel Fagliano creates that.
And these are the super mega clues.
Yeah,
784 was it? 82? I can't remember
I
now.
think yeah.
Somewhere along those lines. That is a lot.
It's a huge endeavor. There's software that constructors use to make crossword puzzles, particularly to make the grid and stuff. And I can only imagine what it does to Joel's computer and Joel's computer screen, trying to fit all of this on it. Obviously, you can't even look at all of it at once on a computer screen.
Well, and I have a big desk. I had to put this on the floor to get a picture of it, a clean picture. I mean, it was. So this is the super mega crossword that Joel Fagliano put together, and then you coordinated with him, right?
Exactly. The first thing we did, and this is probably is not surprising to people, but not everybody realizes that everything is always created backwards in a process like this. So Joel and Will and I shared several emails and calls as we brainstormed what the meta puzzle could look like. Because if we wanted to use something in the crossword, something that required you to solve the whole super mega crossword to get some information that would combine with the answers to the 7 puzzles I did to create the meta puzzle. And actually back then we didn't even know that I would do 7 puzzles. We'd be some number of puzzles. And you brainstorm a bunch of different ideas. One of the things we wanted to have was a final answer, if that makes sense. So when you combine the super mega crossword and the meta puzzle answers, you get the answer. In this case, it was the answer to the question, what is it?
What does a Puzzle Mania solver say after completing this meta puzzle?
Yes, exactly.
And during the show in December, my guess was that the final answer would be, "Thank God I finished."
I actually think we had something like 7,500 answers sent in, and there were more than a few that were something along those lines. Where people just sort of said, "Thank God I'm done," or I can't believe I finished, or I have no idea what's going on. That kind of.
You mentioned you had about 7,500. It was like 7,500 correct answers. I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you, but it was a high percentage of correct answers are the ones that were submitted, right?
Yes. Yeah. There was 7,766 submissions and 7,550 were correct.
Wow.
Now, of course, I'm sure there were thousands of people who didn't submit, who got stuck or didn't make it to the end, and probably some people who finished it and didn't bother submitting an answer. But it's the kind of thing, I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking before. The ideal, puzzle answer is one is the correct answer when you get there. So it's hard to imagine somebody working on this and coming up with anything except the correct answer that they really believed was correct.
And I want to get back to this piece from Will Shortz, this welcome. I thought this quote was great, and I used it in the promo video that we did. Together, the crossword and meta puzzles are like a treasure hunt or escape room in newspaper form. Solve everything, then follow the directions to get a meta answer. That was just great. An escape room in newspaper form.
It is a great description. Particularly the fact that each of those little puzzles, you don't just fill it in and say, "Oh, I'm done." You fill it in, and then something about what you have solved generates an additional word. So it's like you're in an escape room, and it's not just that you opened the right cabinet or assembled some pieces, then once you do that, it unlocks something else, which is part of the fun of doing things like this.
Patricia Freudenberg has a question. When did you start your love for puzzles? How old were you?
That's a great question. My father used to do the Times crossword every day. And when I was, I think, around 10 or 11 years old, I decided to make him a crossword puzzle. And we had a giant unabridged dictionary in the house. And of course, at that age, I had no idea what was fair game or not fair game in a puzzle. I figured if it's in the dictionary, I can use it. So my poor father had to solve this ridiculous crossword puzzle I made that included obscure words that are not in common usage. And one of the things that a published crossword, particularly the Times, but all of the great crosswords out there, does is try to put in things that the general public or a group of people are going to be expected to at least be familiar with. If you don't know it off the top of your head, you might not know the capital of Costa Rica off the top of your head, but it's a thing you're familiar with. You're aware that there's a country called Costa Rica and it's got a capital city. My poor father had clues like the bitter vetch was the clue I gave him. And the answer is ERS, E-R-S, which is a plant. That's another name for a plant called a bitter vetch. I still don't even really know what that is. I'm sure, there are botanists and gardeners who are aware of that, but it was a very obscure word at the time. And my poor father struggled through that. But ever since then, puzzles have been a big part of my life as a hobby. And now in the last several years have become a second career.
That is just great. I want to go back to the puzzles for just a minute and make sure that we point out that it as part of Puzzle Mania. So we had these super mega clues as an insert, but on the back side there were additional puzzles as well. So if the meta puzzle, if the mini puzzles and the super mega wasn't enough for you, for the average reader, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more in a visual trivia, another 7, this spiral, 2 bits, city search, clone Sudoku, cryptic crossword, split decisions. I mean, this kept people busy for a while.
Absolutely. It is. I also want to just call out the spiral, which Will,
sure.
I think Will created that kind of puzzle type and makes them all the time. And they are absolutely brilliant. It's one set of words reading into the spiral and another set of words reading out. And every time I solve one of his, I say, Will, how do you, these amazing long words? It's not like he's just putting the word pot and the word top in there. There are always these great long entries that read as other words going the other direction. And it's I love those as puzzles to play with.
So let's take an example. Angel's headgear inward, 1 through 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be halo, right? Halo. And then the end is 5 through 9. But I don't know what the end would be.
Go to the inward, the outward going clues.
Oh, okay. Jupiter or Neptune.
The very last one, whatever something down to 1 is.
100 to 97. Jupiter or Neptunus.
Sorry, Neil, I meant go to the last one of those. That's something down to 1.
Published.
Let's see. No, go to the bottom of the outward clues.
Bottom of the outward, 6 to 1. I see. Oh, weird. Oh, okay. So inward goes 1 to 4, down to 95 to 100, and then outward starts at 197 and ends at 6 to 1.
Comes back out.
So 6 to 1 is do, and so Halo. Oh, so that would be moolah.
There you go. Right.
Holy cow.
And again, what's so great is you look at the word halo and you think, well, backwards, that's not going to be part of anything. O-L-A-H. What words in English end in O-L-A-H? But of course, there it is, moolah, going the other way. And the spiral is filled with fun.
Those kinds of examples that overlap.
Like that. Yeah.
Wow.
And interlock all the way through.
So you had a number of people reach out over the they worked on this over the holidays, on Christmas, they sent you, hopefully no mean letters about how hard it was. But they the whole family got together. I think some of them had to get like cardboard to put this 3-page crossword,
There
on
are some
something.
extraordinary stories that got sent into the Times. And I had a lot of great messages myself from friends and old school buddies and people reaching out over the last months and since this appeared. Even just a week ago, I got a text from an old friend saying, Greg, we finally finished the meta puzzle. It kept us busy for the whole holiday. The Times has some wonderful mail they got from families saying, this is our favorite part of the year. We get together for the holidays and we can't wait to dig into the Puzzle Mania. Some amazing stories of families who didn't get the print edition and managed to have a friend send them a photograph of the grid, and then they printed it out, but they couldn't print it out on their printer. They put it on one page and it was too small. So they found a way to split it into 8 images and printed those out and then assembled them. Somebody wrote in that she drew the grid, but they couldn't get the paper. So they drew a copy of the grid, which Joel
great.
and I both commented that was most of the holiday right there, trying to hand draw that thing somehow. But there's some great photos, which I think actually, I'm not sure if this will get published in the Times or not, but we'll put together a nice report about the whole issue and some wonderful photos people sent in of family members. People put this up on the wall. I have a friend who does theater upstate in New York, who teaches and was doing a show with his students, and this was up in the green room. So every time you came in for rehearsal or came off stage, you'd go and fill in a couple clues. So by the end of the several weeks, the whole puzzle would be filled in.
And I hadn't actually realized. First of all, I want to give credit to Ori Tor for the illustration on the front page. But I hadn't actually realized until now. I just glanced over it. I assumed this is kind of an interesting kind of illustration. We'll actually put a puzzle on the cover, a Super 7 search. Hidden in the word search grid above are 49 words that can be grouped into 7 categories of 7 words each. Each answer is a single word that reads in a straight line forward, backward, or diagonally. Circle the answers as you find them. When you're done, the unused letters together will suggest a familiar phrase. So there's 7 signs of the zodiac, 7 island countries, 7 geometric shapes, 7 famous one-named singers, 7 colleges named for their founders. Wesleyan University might be on that list. That's where I went. Named for John Wesley.
I didn't realize. Well, Williams might also be on that list, named for Ephraim Williams.
Friends don't let friends go to Williams.
Exactly. That's what we say about Wesleyan.
At least you're not a Red Sox fan.
No,
you're not a Red Sox fan, right?
No. Mets.
That's even worse. It's even worse.
No, New York has got to stick together one way or the other.
No, you know what? I actually disagree. My thing was always, and I'm going to add my ticker just because I always have that ready to go. At the bottom, go Yankees. No matter how much you hate the Red Sox, and as a Yankee fan, got to hate the Red Sox, I always felt you got to hate the Mets more because they're the crosstown rivals. I don't want to hear it from my neighbors if they win.
That's a fair point. But if the Yankees are facing the Dodgers in the World Series, I might have to root for the Yankees. I don't know.
Oh wow.
I don't know though. I didn't. The Dodgers were my dad's favorite team when I was a kid, so I might have to. Yeah. That's a bad example, but my daughter, who's watching at home, is going to be very upset that "Go Yankees" is running across the screen underneath my face. Well, it's going to be.
Well, I'll do her one better just for her. I'll put you big and have the Go Yankees.
It's not fair. I don't have any control over this.
You have no control at all. But I want to, and the bottom is 7 things that have shells, 7 things that come in rolls, was at the bottom of that display that I was showing at the bottom. So this is incredible. And again, kudos to the Times and to all the designers, the puzzle makers, There's on a regular basis, there are different people who put together the puzzles. And of course, Will Shortz is the editor. But it's a whole community, and not just the crosswords, but then you get into, of course, they purchased Wordle, but they also have the spelling bee, the bee game, and tiles and all sorts of things. It's a whole, mini empire that they've created, which is pretty cool. So let's go ahead. Let's put the Puzzle Mania aside for just a moment. And let's get back to some of the other things that we want to talk about. I'll come back on screen in just a moment. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was this book, The Puzzler by A.J. Jacobs.
Yes.
You contributed puzzles to that, and we'll put that on the screen in just a moment. Tell us a little bit about The Puzzler.
Sure. Well, AJ and I met actually at the Mohunk Wonderful World of Words that I was mentioning before. AJ is a terrific author. He's people might know him from The Year of Living Biblically, when he spent a year following all the rules of the Bible, which his wife says is her least favorite of his books. He also did The Know-It-All, where he read the entire encyclopedia. That's when I first became aware of him, because he did a feature on NPR about that. So he showed up at the Words Weekend at Mohunk. We hit it off. He mentioned that he was working on a book about puzzles and had spent a year doing deep dives into all different kinds of puzzles, and asked if, and then subsequent to that, asked if I would contribute puzzles to the book. An original puzzle for each chapter. So there's a chapter on jigsaw puzzles, and then there's a jigsaw-inspired puzzle that I created. There's a chapter on the Rubik's Cube, and I did a kind of Rubik's Cube inspired puzzle. That's the book cover on the screen, and then the website you've got it up is the Puzzler Online, which is a contest that we did in association with the book. So it was the book is great fun. AJ is a terrific writer. He really has some great stories about exploring deeply all the different facets of puzzles. And then we created an online contest. The contest has been, prize has been won, but the puzzles exist online still. So if you enjoy puzzles, get the book. Check out you can do the puzzles on the website without ever buying the book. There's a clue in the introduction to the book that you can find for free online, and then it gets you into the website. AJ has been terrific to work with. And just a side note, that the front, I think, of the Sunday Styles section, the article about plastics,
yes,
is AJ's article. He spent a day trying not to use any plastic at all.
We'll definitely take a look at that when we look through the paper. So one thing that I noticed on this page, and may be hard for folks to read, keep in mind you're allowed more than 641 decillion guesses. You do not put a limit on the number of times people can try and get this right. Or I guess you do put a limit. I mean, if someone went over that amount.
Well, I will, a little bit of a giveaway. That is from the introduction to the book, and that number is in fact a clue to the password that gets you into the website. Now, I will say you can read the intro to the book, and which is available for free online. Try to puzzle out the password and then get into the website. Since the contest is finished, we've added a number of clues on the website to that password, including, I think if you go through all of the clues, the final clue is, here's what the password is, because we no longer wanted to make it a barrier to getting to the fun puzzles online. So you can just go online, find your way to the password, get in there, and then you've got to solve, the 21 puzzles that are in there.
Got it. And Paula is sharing the link to the contest. It's contest.thepuzzlerbook.com. And of course, the book itself is at thepuzzlerbook.com if folks are interested. And I know that Paula is a big fan of AJ Jacobs as well. So thank you, Greg. That was really interesting. Again, the book, the New York Times bestselling author of the Year of Living Biblically, goes on a rollicking journey to understand the enduring power of puzzles, why we love them, what they do to our brains, and how they can improve our world. So you see a little crossword, Rubik's Cube, and a regular puzzle on that graphic.
I will add one thing too,
Please.
Neil. AJ and I are now working on a podcast that we're not sure the title yet. Maybe just the Puzzler Podcast, but it's going to be a little it'll feature different puzzles each episode. Sometimes AJ quizzes me. Sometimes I do a puzzle for him. We'll have guests, stories about the history of puzzles. So let Paula know that she gets to enjoy AJ and all kinds of media coming up.
Absolutely. We'll definitely keep an eye on that. So with that, why don't we switch gears a little bit? And we will definitely spend time on the travel section. But since AJ has that article on plastics, let's jump to the plastics article first, and then we'll do travel section. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good to me.
So I will come back over here to where I have the paper and get the camera on, and we will be good to go. Let's see. Just need to add this back to the show. And give me one moment for the transition. There we go. It's always fun to produce a show. Usually Sri is hosting, and I get to sit back and hit all the buttons. But hosting and producing is always fun. And I should have been on air when on the screen when I did it, but I want to make sure to say hi to my mom who's joining from Tampa, Florida. Hi, Mom. Thanks for watching as always, and we'll definitely be talking later today. So we have the paper here. We'll skip the front page and 52 places to go for the moment and set that aside. But let's find that style section. There we go. So, one man, one day, no plastic. AJ Jacobs, who tried to go 24 hours plastic free. By his count, he made 164 violations. Talk about holding yourself to account. So let's check out this article. This is the graphic first. So let's say all. So what's interesting is he's showing umbrella and glasses and his pillbox or a pillbox, I guess, a computer, plastic bags, toothpaste holder, but there's also cash up here. I was actually thinking that cash would be safe. I wonder if cash is on the list.
It is. We were just talking about this. I'm up in Boston, and he happens to be here as well. Our paper money now has little bits of plastic in it as an anti-forgery feature, but it means that he couldn't use any cash.
Wow.
He apparently went into stores with big rolls of quarters and things like that. Yeah, coins, which drove a lot of shopkeepers crazy in our mostly cash-free world. Now we do everything with our phones and our cards.
Sure. I was going to assume that, plastic free, first thing you do, find cash. What's interesting to me is that they did give, this is a significant bit of real estate that they gave to this experiment. 2 pages inside with a little ad in the corner, several pictures showing his experience with this. Did you have a chance to read this?
I have not had a chance to read it yet. No.
But you knew about did you know about the experiment he was doing, or?
I heard about it earlier this week and then chatted with him a little bit about it just yesterday.
So, for example, here's a shot of him in a subway, and in a subway car. That would be interesting, even just to get through. So you can't use your Metro card. You probably have to somehow get a token, right? If they still use tokens.
There aren't any token. I don't think we can use tokens. I don't know how you even get onto the subway.
How do you get in?
Well, it's a good question is whether you're allowed to have someone else do something for you.
That's a little bit. I don't
You
know.
know, well, it's like
It's
the Sabbath
the
elevators in
the
New York
Sabbath.
hospitals, right?
The Sabbath elevator, and not just in hospitals and apartment buildings.
Yeah.
You know, the and I would say, just in terms of so I actually when I went to Wesleyan, I lived in the Jewish house on campus, and spent a lot of time with. Went to services for 3 years. People actually thought I knew Hebrew. I was that good. I'm not Jewish, actually, but and in fact, I did keep Shabbos one weekend just for
Wow.
the. There's a whole story about how I kept Shabbos, but I actually broke Shabbos because I was wearing tzitzit. I was carrying but not carrying. It's a whole halakhic thing. But it's not just the elevators. It's really more what you were talking about. What is the derogatory term of a Shabbos goy, of having someone who can go around and turn on lights or turn on lamps. This is more of in an older time period, of course. But how he got in, this caption: to avoid sitting on plastic, the writer brought a wooden chair into a New York City subway car. So it's not even a question of how he got in. What he do, what does he do when he's in there? I mean, hopefully these are metal poles that he could hold on to.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure about that. Down here below, clockwise from upper left, a plastic-free morning shave with a razor of zinc and steel. A handmade wool sweater. An array of plastic-free items in the reporter's bathroom. So that's his cleaning routine. So yeah, I mean, like anything with a zipper probably would be out. Up here, far left, scooping walnuts into a glass container with a steel ladle brought from home. Left, glass container, bamboo fork, cotton towel, wooden chair. Check, check, check. Going out to eat must have been crazy. Here's all the coins that he had to use. It's not easy to pay without using plastic. Even paper currency may have synthetic ingredients. Left, stairs were used after shopping to avoid the elevator. Far left, the first draft of this article was written with a plastic-free pencil by candlelight. Sorry, over here. Left, he couldn't use the bed because of plastic. And he still had 168 violations or whatever.
Yeah.
Concocting a DIY deodorant out of tea tree oil and baking soda. I probably would have drawn the line at that. I'm sure my wife would have drawn the line at that. Very, very interesting. Definitely worth taking a close look at if you get a chance. And this was how long? This was a day.
Just a day
of no plastic.
1 day.
That is something. That is something. Please give our best to AJ and let him know that he has fans on the show.
Of course.
And definitely this was an interesting experiment that he did. I'm still reeling from that. Let's take a look at 52 places to go. This is the what has been an annual issue for the Times. Now, what's interesting is that I remember just before the pandemic, I was at Amy Vership's house in New York for the 2020 places to go, 52 places to go. We did a special show from her house, and she walked us through the edition. She had Seb Modak, who is the 2019 Traveler, join us. An epic show for us. I mean, just an incredible honor. And then over the 3 months later, everything shut down. So that list obviously didn't go anywhere. No one could go anywhere. And then we watched the New York Times travel section over the course of the pandemic. Like at some point, they stopped publishing the travel section as a standalone section because travel wasn't as much of a focus. There was I believe the 21 places to go was how do you travel to have a impact on the environment, to be socially responsible travel, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the deputy editor join us, Elizabeth Goodridge. And then last year, Amy joined us again to do a special. It was a Memorial Day, special section. I don't think they did a 52 places to go last year, but it was a bike rides around the world special edition. So that was really interesting. But it's great to see 52 places to go back in the paper. So I'm going to move these sections over to the side again. I want to take a look at both the print edition, but then also make sure to look at the online edition, because it's also gorgeous online. And we have a gift link to the online version and a PDF of the places to go on our website. If you go to digimentors.group/blog and look for today's show, you'll find it. These inside 2 pages is almost like is a table of contents with some large font text, some pictures to highlight, Greenville, for example, and eastern townships in Quebec, several places. And so you can get a full sense of what we're talking about. And here is the quote: "Travel's rebound has revealed the depth of our drive to explore the world. What do we seek? Food, culture, adventure, natural beauty? This list has all of those elements and more." So as we take a look, let us know if you've been to any of these places, Greg, starting off with London.
Well, of course, London.
Of course.
Though we haven't, we had a trip scheduled to London for this summer, and then a couple of my family members got COVID, so that trip got. In fact, when I was looking at this yesterday online, and this was the first thing that came up, it just made me, wistful again, or what's the word, rueful, for not getting to make that trip with the kids this summer, because London feels so close, and in some ways also so far. Like, you get to see the differences in our culture and British culture in a lot of really fun ways.
And what I like about this year's edition of the 50 Places to Go, it seems in the past, my recollection is that there was more text and more explanation, but that this year the emphasis is on the photography, both online and in print. This huge 2-page spread, for example. And then you have this one on the left, Morioka, Japan. Have you been to Japan?
I have been to Japan, to Tokyo. And I agree with you 100% about the photography. When I was looking at this online, I had a number of friends with me, and each page we flipped to, there was a kind of audible gasp at some of the images, and every one of the photos made me want to go to wherever it was, whether it's the desert of Algeria or that bridge in Japan or that part of, what is that, Utah, or the
Monument Valley
Southwest. Yeah. And you just think, God, that looks gorgeous. I want to be there, which is a real tribute to the Times photographers and the work they do.
It is. And as I said, we will take a look at the online edition as well. This is Kilmartin Glen in Scotland. And if there are any fans of Outlander watching, I know my wife and I like watching Outlander, and there's certainly a lot of tours that will go up there. This is full immersion in the Scotland of yore. Stay at the moody 16th century Kilmartin Castle, shown here, which was recently transformed into a boutique hotel with vaulted ceilings, copper tubs, and a wild swimming pond. And then here's the reference to food, Auckland, New Zealand. New Zealand, Greg?
Never been to New Zealand.
Never been.
Australia, but not New Zealand.
We'll see if Australia makes it on the list.
It does. It does. I remember.
It is. Okay.
Yep. Uluru, Ayers Rock in the middle of Australia is going to be in one of the photos.
And Kangaroo Island is as well,
on the
opposite page. Great picture of a koala staring right back at you. And this is Palm Springs, California. I was trying to figure out what the designated International Dark Sky Park has one of the darkest skies in California, with stargazing treks and the annual Night Sky Festival. So this is a telescope, the inside of a telescope, of course.
One of the things I noticed about this section too is that as much as travel is, it can very easily be about consumption, and you need to have the resources to be able to do it, and you're going to do expensive, luxurious, fancy things. There's in many cases, they look for another angle on the experience, whether it's the sustainability, or there's a couple of places that are highlighted as incredible LGBTQ experiences, and not in places you might have expected. Not a kind of big city that always has a thriving and diverse community, but some other places where you say, "Oh, I didn't realize there would be really great experiences there." So they do a good job of finding a lot of different reasons and ways to travel to these places.
And a few comments from Bridge to Bhutan. Greetings from Bhutan. Bespoke mindful journeys in Bhutan. Mary C. Curtis, a former guest on the show, a journalist herself. I really love these travel log kind of pieces, especially after feeling so isolated during COVID, and great images. And certainly we've been talking about the photography. As a reminder, a gift link to the online version and the PDF of this print, complete with the ads, is on our website if you're interested. This is a shot of Ghana about their food scene. So again, another food shot. This was one of my favorite shots, the Northern Lights. This is from Norway, Tromsø, Norway. Have you seen the Northern Lights, Greg?
I've never seen the Northern Lights.
I was lamenting to my wife yesterday after seeing this picture that, and actually it came up. We were watching. I can't remember what we were watching, but the Northern Lights came up in the show, and I said, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to see the Northern Lights. I just can't stand the cold. I would love to see these, but I'm just.
Yeah, you gotta go north, and you gotta stay out, late, and it's going to be cold. There's no question. I think that photo is even better in print because it spreads over the 2 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I remember from the online version, I might be wrong, is that it focuses more on the lights, and you don't get the entire panorama of the lake and the mountains. So I might be wrong about that, but that
and
ridiculous.
What's interesting is that they did choose different pictures online and in print in some places. It's not just the same photos. They looked for what looked best in a square. So, for example, this photo might have worked better as a square photo, half page, may not have worked online in the same way. So I noticed like the London photo was different when we looked at that. And I did remember the movie we were watching yesterday, the more recent edition of Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah,
watched that with our daughter. Some nice Northern Lights shots in there. This is a shot from Brazil. When you want to feel like you've traveled so far that you're only vaguely tethered to the earth. Welcome to Lensois. I won't be able to pronounce it right. A horizon of rolling, blindingly white sand dunes rising into the sun and descending into otherworldly green and blue lagoons filled with rainwater. Wow. We're talking about the photography, but the copy is pretty strong as well. I mean, their copy game is. And here's Bhutan, number 12 on the list.
The happiest place on earth.
And it's Lotte who's saying from LinkedIn, watching on LinkedIn and Facebook. So Bhutan is on the list. I did not realize that. This is great.
Bhutan is definitely a bucket list place for me. It just it's something magical about that part of the world, and the truly is. There's a happiness index, and Bhutan is always ends up high on the happiness index. I don't know whether it's the UN that does that, or maybe it's Bhutan that puts together the happiness index. But it just really looks like a gorgeous, very beautiful, and kind of peaceful place to be.
So you have an invite, Greg.
Look at that.
To get out there. Lotte is watching on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you. And that would be an incredible marketing coup if they're the ones that put out the happiness index every year and come out on top. That would be some smart moves there. But yes, Bhutan is definitely interesting. And then Kerala, India is on the list. We travel to immerse ourselves in other cultures, but some forms of community tourism put residents on display without offering benefits. Not so in Kerala, a southern Indian state celebrated for its beaches, backwater lagoons, cuisine, and rich cultural traditions. That's interesting.
I thought that was a beautiful and surprising photograph too.
Yes. I wouldn't have thought Greenville, South Carolina would have made this list, this August list. Set in the shadow of the Blue Ridge Mountains, Greenville has established itself on the culinary scene. So that is interesting. Have you been to South Carolina?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We spent some time in Charleston recently, and actually Savannah, Georgia as well, kind of sister city nearby. Somebody commented earlier about how much the travel section kind of made them feel great after COVID, or after all the isolation. And yeah, that's exactly the quote. I feel since I was a kid, I felt like the travel section was a great escape without ever going to any of these places. You read the copy, read people's experiences, look at the amazing photos, and just feel like, God, what an amazing world we live in, and amazing variety and opportunity out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is Tucson, Arizona. On the right, Martinique over here. Great shot of probably a hummingbird, but I was thrown off by the fact that it was black. But yeah, great photography. And we're only on number 16. So another landscape shot, the Namib Desert in southern Africa. Beautiful. The Alaska Railroad on the left. And certainly under the adventure category. I've been to Alaska several times. We went there for our honeymoon on a cruise, a 7-day cruise. As I'll get a glass of water, because otherwise my mom's going to say, Neil, I told you to have a glass of water ready.
But Neil, you made it very clear you don't like the cold. So it's interesting that for your honeymoon, potentially you kind of the most celebratory getaway of your life,
yes,
you chose to go head north to the cold.
It was August, first of all. And we got married. We were living in Seattle. We got married in Victoria, British Columbia. And so we liked the idea. We took a 7-day cruise out of Vancouver. And so it wasn't that cold, actually. And I did actually go up there when I worked with an organization. We did several meetings in Juneau in January. That was cold.
Yes.
But when we did our annual meeting, we did it in July in Anchorage one year. That was really great. We did fly up to the north of the Arctic Circle. And I did do one conference in Fairbanks as well.
Wow.
And went to visit the North Pole. There's an actual North Pole. I took pictures. This would have been in the, I don't know, 2007 or so, 2008 maybe. I took pictures of the North Pole because I knew if we ever had kids, I want to be able to show them that I'd been to the North Pole. There's a post office. There's a Santa's workshop, the whole 9 yards. Here's so Japan is on the list twice. Fukuoka, again, the culinary scene, and then Flores, Indonesia. Oh, gorgeous! Look at that gorgeous shot there.
Yeah.
And Guadalajara, Mexico, and Algeria.
Yeah, that's a striking photograph of Algeria.
It's a good ad. We always like looking at the ads in the Times, in the paper. If anything, it's a signal that the paper is doing well, that it's getting revenue. That's a good thing. Georgia, Kakheti, Georgia. The mountainous nation of Georgia's 8,000-year-old winemaking tradition is at the center of several new trends in the wine world, including skin contact, aka orange, wines, amphora fermentation, and charismatic grape varieties like Saperavi. This is France, again, the food side of the equation. And then another full-page spread for Vietnam. We're about halfway through Oman.
Yeah,
this one on the left.
The camels crossing that water, and somewhere the copy says something about waterfalls bubbling in the desert, or there's a phrase like that caught as we were looking at it. Several of us remarked, God, I want to go right there now. Magic that must be.
No, it is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. And have you been? You've been to the Middle East more broadly?
I have been to where was I? I was in Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi.
I do a lot of theater in my other career as a composer and music person. I do a lot of theater work and do theater workshops with international schools. I was doing this was actually through the Metropolitan Opera Education Department, was in working with some teachers in Abu Dhabi. We took a little camel ride out into the desert. And then my wife and I, on our way to Sri Lanka, had a layover in Oman, I think, or Qatar, I forget. But anyway, sort of been through that part of the world only once or twice.
Well traveled, sir. Well traveled. Denmark on the left. This is designed by the Japanese architect Kengo Kuma and Associates, the new Hans Christian Andersen Museum in Odense on the island of Funen. Again, my apologies on the pronunciation. Is more than a museum. It's a mystical land featuring labyrinthine gardens that double as a public park. And then Uluru, Australia. You had mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
That is great. Okay, talk about photography. That is Panama. Just stunning. Just stunning. Tarragona, Spain on the left. And then for Mary, Charleston, South Carolina. And I know that Paula made a comment about this. She was in Charleston in 2021 and was watching the construction of the International African American Museum, which is pictured right here. I think it's going to be an incredible addition to the city and the U.S. in general. Mary was saying, don't forget the Carolinas. And we would not do that to you, Mary. We would not do that. Mary is in North Carolina, but I guess there's some Carolina solidarity going on. Here's Honduras. And another one from France, the Burgundy Beer Trail in France. Istanbul. That's one of my wife and I lived in Cairo for 2 years, and we kept wanting to go to Istanbul. We never did, unfortunately.
Istanbul I was there many years ago. Again, it's related to the theater experience. One of the things that I thought was fun about this section was seeing Istanbul and immediately remembering the places I went, and then realizing they're featuring something new that's in the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the African American Museum in Charleston.
Sure.
In each case, they're sort of saying, this is a place you might have been before, but now it's got this new exciting thing to come see, and I love that about this section, where even if it's a familiar place, it's got something new to see.
Exactly. Here is Colombia on the left and Lausanne, Switzerland on the right. And here's a nice, again, spread. This is Greece, showing some, as not just hiking, looks like they're running on that trail going up. Patricia says, thank you to the entire New York Times read-along team and our guest, Greg. Sir Greg.
Oh, thank you, Patricia.
You've been knighted, sir.
Yes. My trip to London worked out after all.
Amazing episode. Let's get back to the States. Louisville, Kentucky. One of the oldest cities west of the Appalachian Mountains and arguably among the most beautiful. Louisville somehow flies under the radar. This despite its graceful 19th century park system designed by Frederick Law Olmsted and its bourbon-fueled convivial spirit. And another one from Brazil. And Lithuania. And we have Macon, Georgia.
Actually, Neil, the Lithuania one we had some fun with, because the subheading is something like 700-year-old ready to party or something like that, at least on the online
Might be
version.
online, yeah.
And the photo is this guy on a swinging sofa below a bridge. We had us all laughing because it was as if he was the 700-year-old, looking to party. They're of course referring to the city, but it looks like it's him. It's just
Well,
really
and it
great.
looks like there's a target above, maybe connected to the sofa. It almost as if it's a dunk tank.
Yes, it's in the middle of the river, and the 700-year-old dunk tank tradition of Vilnius, Lithuania.
Now, I would have thought, without the headline here, I would have thought this was from New Zealand, showing a Hobbit tour.
Huh.
But this is actually Macon, Georgia. And then Madrid. If art is a universal language, Picasso's anti-war Guernica above may be one of its most potent symbols. It's interesting that they would use Guernica for this.
The other thing I noticed, the online photo is different. The online photo is from the side, and you see both the mural and the faces of the viewers. I'm sure you've done this, but makes me want to talk to the photography staff and the art directors of this issue and say, how do you make these choices? What
exactly
informs the print versus the online? And
exactly. And we love when we get to have that kind of conversation, and we did just that last week with Tanner Curtis, talking about the year in pictures. This is from Montana on the left, and then Eastern Townships, Quebec on the right, and it closes. Oh no, not yet. This is New Haven, Connecticut. Surprised, I didn't realize Connecticut was on the list. Connecticut's third largest city is a historic, mostly walkable and bikeable seaside town with distinctive neighborhoods, an encyclopedic collection of great American architecture, a thriving cultural life, and one of the best food scenes in the country for a city of its size.
And that photo looks like it's from an art exhibit. That caught my eye too. We go up near there a lot, and of course never knew that existed. So this is where the section again, I feel like, oh, here's something I thought I knew that I don't know. It's great that way.
So we have South Dakota, the Black Hills of South Dakota on the left, and Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina on the right. And that's the 52nd place on the list. So that is the 52 places. And now what we'd like to do is to switch. We said that we were going to show the online edition real quick, just to kind of show what that experience looks like. So I will rejoin the show. And remind people that a gift link to this the online version is on our website. And we also have the PDF on our website. So certainly encourage you to take a look at that. And we will show you what the online version is all about in just a moment. There we go. And so when you go to the page, it starts off with this slideshow of this interactive page of some of the highlights. But what I really liked is just when you tab down, you have all these pictures as full screen slides. This is the London picture, which is different. They were facing the other way when we look through it. This is Morioka, Japan. This is a little video, just people walking across the bridge. A walkable gem. That's a great way to show that. Monument Valley Tribal Park, Kilmartin Glen. This is the Auckland, New Zealand. They did put the ads in as well. Palm Springs, a different angle. Kangaroo Island video for the koala bears. I mean, this is what we like. As much as this show is about the print edition of the paper, we always like showing the online version as well when there's something special to show. And so this is the Northern Lights picture that we were.
Oh yeah, no, it is the same, similar.
It's very similar, very similar. A different angle on that beach in Brazil. The picture of Bhutan, Kerala, Greenville. So this is actually, it's interesting in terms of, I think, On the print edition, this was a half, 1 page, not the 2-page spread, almost cut it in half. Whereas now you have the egg dish in the center here. This is Tucson, Arizona. This is a clear picture of the hummingbird. Martinique, Southern Africa, the Alaska Railroad. Now, this is a great use of video, right? This is now that might be Denali, I would assume. That was where, when I went to Fairbanks, I actually did have a chance to visit Denali, which was gorgeous in April.
And that's actually the flip of what the print edition has like an aerial shot of the train winding through the mountains. So it's so nice to get a different perspective from inside the train.
Exactly. Japan, a different look of Indonesia, very different picture than online, not just a different angle. Mexico, Algeria, Georgia. Let's see. And then this is France in terms of the food. A different picture from Vietnam, Oman, Cuba. A little lighter than the picture on print was a nice darker sunset. Presuming it's sunset, not sunrise. Panama, this is that gorgeous picture that we saw earlier. Spain, Charleston, South Carolina. Here's just a great example of why sometimes we do want to look at the online version. Video from inside the museum. A powerful space. So the online has the subheads. A powerful space will examine a city's past and honor the African American legacy. This is great. This is great. Honduras and France. Different look for Istanbul, I think. A different angle. This is Taiwan, Medellin, Colombia, and Switzerland, Greece. Those are all similar. Louisville, Kentucky. And here's interesting in terms of the subhead. This is a little video. You can't, if you can tell, it's actually showing the distillery, a rising LGBTQ scene with quilts, drag shows, the Derby, and of course bourbon. So it's interesting what they could do with the subheads. This is that 700-year-old survivor ready to party. The city, not the person.
Exactly. It just looks like it's the guy. I'm sorry.
And this helps explain in Georgia 1,100-year-old Native American mounds and deep rock and roll roots in Macon, Georgia. Madrid. So this is, you're saying, not just the different angle. This is video. Of people looking at Guernica. Kicking off a worldwide tribute to Picasso in a place that's a masterpiece unto itself. And Grand Junction, Colorado, Colombia again, Italy, the American Prairie, Montana, Quebec, New Haven. So these balloons, I mean, that definitely has a different feel for it when you see the balloons floating up. And the Black Hills of South Dakota, pine forest powwows, and a climb up to Crazy Horse's giant granite face. Sarajevo. And then the final page, design and production, Sean Katengui, if I'm pronouncing correctly, and Gabriel Gianardoli. Editing, Daniel Adkison, Stephen Hiltner, Suzanne McNeil, Morgan McCarthy, Fiona Murray, Nancy Ramsey, Tacey Reichter, and Amy Vership, who is the travel editor. Photo editing, Phaedra Brown, and maps by Baden Copeland. They offered a few corrections there as well. I also want to give a shout out to the designers, the graphic designers on this piece. The design credits go to Felicia Vasquez and Alana Schlenker. So kudos to them for the graphic design of the print version. Greg, this has been a great tour. Jay, I love the 52 places to go feature in today's times. Thank you for diving into it. Sir Greg, you're going to have to start using that somewhere.
Yeah, it's going to catch on.
And Jay collects the puzzle every year, so that's definitely great. She's a puzzler,
I love that,
um,
Jay.
and so that's kudos there. Um, and let's see, Lotte was saying it's almost like last night's beauty pageant, but the travel pageant in terms of the different places. Great story and fun chat. Saying thank you to the read along to make sure we didn't miss anyone else along the way. But no, those looks like it was uh, most of the comments that we had. We had a few other folks offer condolences to Sri and his family earlier. My mom shared that as well, and as did a few others. Lotte did earlier. So thank you for sharing that. Greg, we're going to give you a quick break. We're going to make a few announcements, but when you come back, if you can offer a tip, either for puzzlers or puzzle makers working with the times, whatever you think is a good tip you can offer for folks, let us know. Our guest, of course, has been Greg Pliska, a puzzle maker. He's also a composer. We didn't even get a chance to talk about his work composing, but he is an accomplished composer as well. But thank you so much for joining us. Again, a shout out to our Paula Kiger, who engages with the audience on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Paula, for adding so much to our show in terms of links and context and more. It's always great. Anyone, when you produce a show, you really should have someone, uh, engaging with the audience. As much as I can read comments and engage with people, you really do want someone who can interact and type in the chat with folks. Thank you again to Muckrack for their longtime support of the New York Times Read Along, Sri's Sunday New York Times Read Along. We really appreciate it. We also want to give a shout out to the Local Connection newsletter. Every week they offer pro tips for and story ideas for journalists. Best of all, it's free. It's put out by the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University. You can subscribe at bit.ly/local news tips, bit.ly/local news tips. And what I'd like to do also before bringing Greg on, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I want to give a quick shout out or just acknowledgement, putting my information on the screen. In addition to Twitter and Instagram at Neil Parekh, you can follow me on Mastodon. I'm on the masto server /Neil Parekh. And you'll find Greg on Mastodon as well. He's at mas.to at Greg Pliska. And I also wanted to give you a heads up on a personal project that I set up. You can see my website. Just launched a new website over the holidays. I spent much of Christmas break figuring this out. It was my trip to Maui, which really inspired me to share my photography. You can see it on the wall behind me. We showed that last week on the show. But I set up a website so that I could highlight that photography and start a blog. So you're a couple of photo galleries, and I started off with the beginning post, and then a comparison of the different platforms I looked at for setting up the website. So have a number of special projects to come. I'll let you know about them in the coming week. But please check out my website if you get a chance. Again, it's neilparekh.org is the website. And would appreciate any feedback or comments you might have on the photography, on the blog posts, and the projects that are yet to come. So with that, we're going to bring back Greg Pliska to the show and see what final thoughts he might have. Greg?
Thanks, Neil. Thank you. I love that photo on the top of your blog there. I hadn't seen that before. It's really spectacular.
Yeah, thank you. This photo is my favorite photo from our trip to Hawaii, and this was just a quick. We took in Maui. We went on the road to Hana, and I jumped out and took a quick photo with my cell phone in the widest possible
Hmm.
view. And one of the things that I've come to realize, and I've tried doing this now with every picture, I'm taking 4 different versions in the widest view, in the 16 by 9, in square, 3 by 4, because
Oh,
it's hard to crop when you get a shot like this and you frame it just right. You can't crop a square from this. It just doesn't work the
no, no,
same.
no.
Um, so when you that's one of the things I'm going to be writing about soon. Just if you can have that discipline. If you're taking just a picture, if I'm taking a picture of Emily, for example, my daughter, don't necessarily need to do 4 versions, but anything you might want to use later, I certainly encourage taking the extra moment to take different types of shots if you can.
That's a great pro tip right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what about your pro tip?
We,
What do you have for us?
I was thinking a lot about there's something that you do here really well is recognizing the process that goes into creating something. We used to try to do this all the time when I used to teach uh, theater and music. That we often as an audience take for granted that what we're seeing has been that way all along. Yet when you look at the print edition versus the online edition, you realize that people are making choices about which photo to use or how to orient them or how to crop them. And that's true of all creative work. All creative work is done with a lot of behind the scenes careful thought and planning. And a photographer's got 24 different versions of a photo, or 50 different versions, and pares it down to one. In fact, the same is true of puzzles. And if you find yourself stuck trying to solve a puzzle, sometimes, in addition to just taking a step back or putting the crossword down and coming back to it an hour later, sometimes thinking about, well, why did the constructor make it the way they did? They had options, they had choices, and they chose to use this funny shape or this odd clue or this weird turn of phrase. Maybe that's actually a way to unlock what is going on in the puzzle. It's certainly something I do when I'm solving. There are times I'll look at something and feel totally stuck and say, this word seems odd. Why did they use that word? And then that might unlock something about what's going on.
That's great, Greg. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really does help. And you're right. There are a lot of choices, and helping to explain some of the choices gives a little bit of that behind the scenes look for folks.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we talk about the in school you learn about the great Western European composers, and people want to say, well, Mozart was inspired by God, or Handel's Messiah was just handed to him magically, and you realize as you get into this world of creativity that all of our choices are informed by so many different parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all lucky to be able to do what we do and create what we create. But it's not just magic. It's actually a lot of hard work and choice making and decisions. And that's an essential part of that skill is learning how to make a decision. Say, yes, we're using this photo, or we're
Yeah.
we're going to edit this song this way, and we got to commit to it. And there it is.
As an example, I took 2,000 pictures when we went to Maui. You
Yeah.
see, 3, 4, and another 4, like 7, 4 and 6, 10 photos behind me or something. I can't even count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 6, 11 photos behind me out of those 2,000, and much less the ones I put on the website.
Exactly.
Um,
I've always wanted to do a seminar on sort of related to this. People see that, I see that Maui photo and I think, oh my God, Neil is an extraordinary photographer. I will never be able to do that. But in fact, I probably could, start to learn to do that by going out and taking hundreds of photos and realizing, oh, this one works, this one doesn't. And that learning about how failure helps a person become better
yes.
at their creativity
Yes.
is really what that's about, right? I go and write 20 pieces of music that I think are terrible. And then I finally use what I've learned to make the one I love. And that's what the world sees.
Yes.
And that, that's not just magic. That's a bunch of work that we've all done. And all of us can strive that direction.
You learn as you go. And,
Yeah.
and there are things I learned on the trip in Maui, and there are things that I applied in that trip. The best part about it, and you don't see it on the shot behind me, but my daughter got into photography during that trip. So she's 9. We actually could compare notes, and I could teach her a thing or two, or show her what I was doing in terms of getting in position, finding the right angle, where to position the sun, etc. So that takes it on to a whole nother level in terms of sharing with her. A few more comments that came in. Linda says, thanks for such an enjoyable show. Have a great week. Jonathan says, delightful program. One of my teachers was Tad Mosel, who maintained until the day he died he would be better remembered as a clue in crossword puzzles than he would as an award-winning playwright. That is certainly interesting. And again, Paula, thank you for sharing my website with folks, neilparekh.org. Mary is asking how I find the time, and Mary, that's still that's an eternal question. How do we find the time to do the things we want? Some of these are passion projects. Before I joined Digimentors, I was producing the New York Times read along for Sri because I thought it was fun. And it's sometimes you can turn that into a job, or with the website and the photography, it is one of those things I've been doing, and I just need to find an outlet for it and find a way to push it out. But certainly more to come on that. Greg, thank you again for joining us for this week's show. As a programming note, I want to make sure folks know that we will not have a show next Sunday, but we will be back January 29. So no show on January 22nd. We will be back on January 29th. We look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.